Society operates on the assumption that living alone is a temporary or accidental state, a condition that leads inevitably to isolation and emotional decay. We are told that humans are social animals, and without a constant pack, we will suffer. Yet we are currently living through a period where cities are swarming with people, and digital networks are more dense than ever, while reported levels of loneliness have hit record highs. Being surrounded by others has failed to solve the problem. This gap between our physical proximity and our emotional state suggests we have misdiagnosed the relationship between solitude and distress. Loneliness exists independently of your physical surroundings. It is a psychological state that we have mistakenly linked to the simple act of being by yourself. Peggy is 91 years old. For the last 15 years, she has lived entirely on her own in the house she once shared with her family. When her husband passed away, her children and friends immediately pressured her to move closer to them or to fill her calendar with social activities. They assumed that her survival depended on escaping her own company. Peggy stayed, and in the 15 years since, she has found that her days are not defined by the absence of people, but by a sense of complete contentment. She hasn't felt lonely once. Her peace comes from a specific, repeatable approach to her days, a framework that treats solitude as a skill to be mastered rather than a problem to be solved. Peggy relies on a sharp distinction between physical proximity and genuine connection. You can sit in a room with 100 people and remain entirely unknown. For Peggy, connection is defined as the feeling of being deeply known and valued, a state that doesn't require constant presence. This diagram represents two models. On the left, a person connects to dozens of distant dots. The model on the right shows three closely orbiting nodes. Shallow acquaintances act as attacks, draining the center. By contrast, she intentionally chooses depth over quantity. She curates a circle of just 3 close friends and a weekly phone call with her daughter. This small, stable network provides more psychological stability than large, noisy groups. When you no longer have to match a partner's schedule or a roommate's habits, the built-in rhythm of the day evaporates. Without a second person to anchor the timeline, the hours can become shapeless. Peggy replaces that lost structure with rigid, self-imposed micro-routines. Every morning at 7, she uses the same cup, sits in the same chair, and watches the birds. These repetitions act as load-bearing pillars, giving each day a predictable, grounding form. She also maintains an external responsibility. For her, it is an 11-year-old cat named Mildred who expects a meal at exactly 7:15. Whether it is a pet, a thriving garden, or a bird feeder, having a living entity that counts on your presence provides a necessary push. This responsibility pulls her attention firmly outward. On mornings when she might otherwise retreat into her own thoughts, the cat's demands force her to engage with the physical, present world. Living alone successfully is not about waiting for the time to pass. It is the active, daily work of constructing your own momentum. The most difficult aspect of this lifestyle is the constant, inescapable presence of your own mind. There is no one else there to distract you from yourself. Many people struggle because they measure their quiet, solitary hours against the loud, highly visible social lives they see on screen. They see their preference for a book over a party and conclude that they are failing to live correctly. Peggy spent decades comparing herself to outgoing people, feeling that she was too quiet or too boring. But at 91, she looked back at her long preference for early nights and birdwatching and realized she was simply built for a different pace. She stopped apologizing for her nature. Reaching this level of self-acceptance allows the quiet to feel like a choice rather than an imposition. It is the final shift that turns isolation into a sanctuary. The blueprint is clear. Build a routine, curate deep connections, find something to be responsible for, and stop fighting your own quiet nature. However, even with this framework, the reality of loss remains. Peggy was married for nearly half a century. There is an empty chair in her living room that will stay empty. She maintains a boundary between the specific ache of missing her husband and the condition of loneliness. Missing a person is an act of memory. Loneliness is an act of isolation. They are not the same. Her life contains a permanent void left by loss, but the structure around that void remains intact and emotionally full. Mastering solitude means giving yourself permission to stop wanting the life society says you should have. A quiet life offers a sense of enoughness that requires no apology. It is a very good life if you let it be.